I think we can begin now.
A very warm welcome to one and all present here. My name is Priyoshi, and thank you so much for joining us today on the occasion of World Cancer Day. Along with us here today, we have our co-founders and president, Kashvi Dikshit and Pragati Malya, Vice President of TCP East, Digvi, Secretary of TCP East, Jia Mudit. And along with them, we have our finance officer, Aditya, and a social media officer, Tashvi. Please feel free to drop in a chat to our co-host if you have any queries or doubts. Before we begin, I would like to draw your attention to the crowdfunding link that we have generated to raise funds for those patients who cannot afford treatment. Now we have Ritu and Griffin presenting more about it.
Hello everyone, I'm Ritu Patil.
And I'm Griffin Jolly.
We from TCP East are raising funds for Kachar Cancer Hospital and Research Center and Iksha Foundation for the treatment of poor cancer patients. Did you know, according to the National Cancer Registry Program, 1 in 9 Indians develop cancer during their lifetime. Even if cancer is identified at an early stage, 50% of patients stop visiting hospitals after 2 or 3 cycles of chemotherapy due to the high cost of treatment. Poverty-stricken patients may also resort to dire methods such as mortgaging their property to afford the treatment. We, TCP East, are fundraising to help such poverty-stricken patients.
We at TCP have partnered with Kachar Hospital and the Iksha Foundation in order to raise awareness and raise money to help aid the treatment of children affected with cancer. Dr. Ravi Kannan and his medical team in Kachar have helped in busting various myths about cancer treatment being expensive and not for common folk. Now, I'd like to speak about the Iksha Foundation. The Iksha Foundation creates awareness and provides aid for treatment and for supporting the research to improve the care of children diagnosed with retinoblastoma, a type of eye cancer which can prove to be fatal. They have supported over 120 children and continue to support various others in their relentless fight against this life-threatening form of cancer.
We hope you would like to join us in helping children diagnosed with cancer. The link to donate towards this cause has been provided in the chat box. Guys, please, please, please donate. It's for a good cause and it's for the poor cancer patients.
Yes, guys, please do donate. Every bit helps in adding up to this good cause. And also, we are going live on our Instagram page today at 6, interviewing a cancer patient. Please do join in to hear about their journey. Teens for Cancer Patients, an international youth-led organization dedicated to battling cancer. About us. Varshini Vijay, the founder and president of Teens for Cancer Patients, does not regard TCP as just a social media hierarchy, but rather as a group of extremely closely knit volunteers that want to make a difference, due to which we have expanded over 12 countries, having 15 chapters and 400 members, creating an impact by raising 2.23 lakh, circulating 10,000 sanitary napkins to orphan girls, and hosting successful webinars with our guest partners, Padma Shri awardee Dr. Kannan, founder of Sanjeevani Ruby Ahluwalia, and a professor from the World Health Organization, Dr. Ravi Mehrotra, and more. Following the path, TCP East has also raised awareness on different types of cancer in the society and created emotional support cards and circulated them along with our wellness kits. About TCP East. TCP East has over 50 volunteers dedicated to bridging socio-economic disparities in cancer care by conducting community outreach events to increase awareness, fundraising for treatment of poverty-stricken cancer patients, creating wellness kits for hygiene, emotional support for patients, social media posts to create awareness and educate others about cancer. And none of this would have been possible without our founders, Kashvi Dikshit and Pragati Malya, whose constant determined forces have conducted numerous club meetings with our fellow volunteers, which has led to our first gaming competition with over 60 participants. And also a triumphant success in spreading awareness by reaching out to over more than 7,000 people. Now we have Pragati throwing some light on what cancer really is.
Before we start, let us have a message from Dr. Kannan.
Cancer is a disease acquired because of our lifestyles, using tobacco, areca nut, alcohol, dietary imbalances, lack of physical activity, and some untreated infections. All of these are preventable, and therefore, cancer is a potentially preventable disease. Symptoms that occur because of cancer can be gut wrenching. They're terrible. There is pain, there is discharge, there is bleeding, there is fungating wounds, there is a whole lot of issues associated with cancer. And the treatment is not easy. Treatment is expensive. It costs money, it costs time. Oftentimes it is uncertain. There's a lot of emotional trauma and stress associated with diagnosis of cancer, with the treatment process, and the aftermath of treatment. After treatment, many patients constantly live in fear of recurrence of cancer. They have side effects of treatment. And all of this is potentially preventable. It's an economic disaster that can be prevented. When we prevent cancer, we also prevent a whole lot of other non-communicable diseases, cardiovascular diseases, strokes, COPDs, peripheral vascular disease, diabetes, whole hypertension, whole lot of other diseases are either caused by the same set of etiological factors or are aggravated by these factors. And by preventing cancer, we're actually preventing a whole lot of other diseases. In other words, we're actually promoting health, which I think is an individual and a national responsibility.
Now we have Pragati on speaking about it. Pragati, please unmute yourself.
Now, let us throw some light on what cancer is. Let us assume you are the leader of your class or the class monitor, and the teacher is absent. In a state of control, you're able to ensure the class is absolutely quiet. But let's say one kid starts making noise, and then another, and then another. The whole system is in chaos. Cancer is just as such. Cancer or cancer cells are cells that have lost the ability to follow the normal control that the body exerts on all cells. The abnormal cells divide uncontrollably and destroy body tissue. These cells can then invade parts of the body and spread to other organs. One of the major reasons for cancer spread is late-stage diagnosis and lack of access to treatment. These are common, particularly in low and middle-income countries. The following graph depicts the number of cancer cases in 2020, the number of deaths caused by cancer in 2020 as well. 1 unit is equal to 1 million cases. Common misconceptions, aka don't listen to Uncle Auntie's forwarded WhatsApp messages. Artificial sweeteners can cause cancer. Cancer is contagious. Cell phones cause cancer. I mean, we hear a lot of our parents say that causes all of our problems, but it's not true. And herbal products can cause cancer.
Thank you, Pragati. That was some engaging information. Next, we have Jia Mudit giving us a comprehensive view about cancer in India.
Thank you, Priyashi. Our country, filled with colors, festivals, and laughter, also faces a harsh reality. In India, every year, 1.3 million patients are diagnosed with cancer, and 8% of adult deaths are attributed to it. Financial toxicity is the negative impact that medical expenses can have on patients. Financial toxicity eventually pushes families into poverty and hardship. This happens because of debt accumulating for several generations, child labor within families, and the need to work overtime or even do part-time jobs during chemotherapy. In India, more than 50% of cancer patients face financial burden due to treatment, as the cost of treatment is twice the average annual income of Indian citizens. As a result, one-third pediatric deaths in India occur due to abandoning treatment. Now, I would like to share with you stories of two very brave cancer survivors, Aanchal Sharma and Omana Babu. Aanchal was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer in 2017. In the initial stages of her treatment, she faced severe financial difficulty. Her family sold almost everything they had and even borrowed funds from their friends for Aanchal's treatment. Strangers too pitched in to help finance treatment and provide support. While undergoing treatment, Aanchal would talk to other patients, motivate them, and spread optimism. Just 1 week after her diagnosis, she started her very own NGO, which treats slum children for free. She would help provide them meals even when she was unable to pay by cooking on her own. Aanchal believes that serving meals to children in need helped her overcome her own adversities. Omana was diagnosed with cancer after several miscarriages. She was unable to afford chemotherapy as all the money in the house was going towards the treatment of her husband, who was bedridden due to injury at work. Omana's oncologist helped greatly in financing her treatment, along with a few kind hearts. Omana has now defeated cancer. We often see patients like these struggling to make ends meet when diagnosed with cancer and desperately need financial assistance. Cancer is tough, but there is still kindness and hope left, similar to Aanchal's family and the oncologist who supported Omana's treatment. Now, we at TCP strive to be a part of this change, and we believe you can be a part of the change too, starting with taking care of yourself. Let's dive into what causes cancer so we can learn to protect ourselves. Lifestyle factors such as smoking and a high-fat diet increase the cause of cancer. Genetic and family factors such as family history and inheritance. Environmental exposures. Pesticides, fertilizers, and power lines have been researched for a direct link to childhood cancer. And last but not least, tobacco.
Thank you, Jia. That was pretty insightful. Now we have Kashfi inculcating on the hazardous use of tobacco.
Thank you, Prayoshi. Now, I'm sure we've all heard about how tobacco is harmful and how it's bad for health. But how bad is it really? How much do we know about how it affects our organs and how large scale is its spread? Let's look at some of the tobacco statistics in India. Over 20 million 10 to 14-year-olds are addicted to tobacco, and 2 million are added to this number every year. That's 5,500 new kids being addicted to tobacco on a daily basis. Over 30% of the population above 15 years of age uses some form of tobacco. Cigarettes can cause about 90% of all lung cancers, and smokers are also at a 10 times higher risk for oral cancer compared to non-smokers. Smoking is also linked to increased risk for more than 12 other types of cancers too. Added to that is the fact that India is the second leading producer and consumer of tobacco in the world. Those are some shocking statistics. Let's talk about why tobacco is harmful. Tobacco contains a lot of harmful chemicals that include carcinogens, which are cancer-causing agents, poisonous gases,
radioactive metal, and toxic heavy metals. This includes formaldehyde, which is used to preserve dead bodies, hydrogen cyanide, which was used in gas chambers during the Holocaust, nicotine, which is a poisonous addictive chemical, arsenic, which is used in rat poison, cadmium, which is used in batteries, and lead and polonium, which are poisonous radioactive heavy metals. How does tobacco really affect the body? Tobacco use affects nearly every major organ in the body, causing fatal morbidities and untimely deaths. Tobacco use in any form can cause cancers in different organs, such as the mouth, brain, lungs, kidneys, stomach, colon, pancreas, skin, etc. Tobacco can also cause other diseases such as heart disease, stroke, lung disease, blindness, and more. Tobacco can also destroy more than just health. It destroys relationships and lives. Let's take a look at the story of an ex-smoker and see what we can learn from it.
My mom started smoking cigarettes in college, and she was diagnosed with lung cancer. I was around maybe 14, 15 years old when she got the diagnosis. I often think back, even all these years later, about all the things that I experienced that she wasn't around for. And just to think about how sad and even sometimes angry that I still am at the loss of my mother, I couldn't bear the thought of putting that same weight on my own child.
Well, I listened to my mom talk about her experience with her mom. It's like I can't imagine anybody going through what you went through. And just to think about me not having a mom and having to take care of you, I just can't imagine how anybody could be strong enough to do that. And that's why I admire you. Because when I think about not having you around, it's almost like, what will I do? You know, and I'm very proud of you.
As you could see, that was a very devastating story about a girl and her mom and what could have happened if she gave in to smoking. Tobacco is the most prevalent cause of cancer, but it's also the most preventable cause of cancer. Let's talk about peer pressure and substance use. Now, we've all heard the term peer pressure so many times. We've had so many workshops, so many webinars about it. Why do you think we stress so much about peer pressure? When you think of peer pressure, you might get a picture of bullying in your mind, but sometimes it may not be as direct as bullying or ragging. It might come from people who are really close to you, intentionally or unintentionally, and that's harmful as well. You may feel pressured to use tobacco by your peers, and you may want to give in because you feel like you want to fit in, or maybe you want to know what it tastes like. You want to just have one little taste. I mean, how bad can it be? Or maybe you're just afraid to say no. Dealing with this pressure can be challenging, but it's important to reflect on your own personal values and preferences and make decisions based on those values instead of on peer pressure. And it's easy to say this right now. You could just say, I know my values, I know where I stand. But at other times, when you're actually in that situation, it can get really tough to differentiate between your feelings and the pressure. You might feel confused, pressured, or tempted to act against your own judgment. And one important thing to remember when you find yourself in a situation like that is when it comes to tobacco, smoking, drugs, alcohol, a lot of students overestimate how many of their peers are using these substances. I'm sure we've all had these thoughts that everyone is doing it and I should do it too. But that's not the truth. Not everyone is doing it. Knowing these facts can help you resist pressures based on the idea that everyone is doing it and you must partake to fit in. Now, how do you deal with peer pressure? The first thing you can do is set boundaries. Allow yourself to avoid these people or situations that don't feel right. You do not have to be boundaries. It is okay to do. The next thing you could do is check in with yourself. When you feel like you're being pressured to do something you don't want to do, take a minute to think about it before replying. Ask yourself questions like, how am I feeling about this? Does this feel right? What are the pros and cons of making this decision? And recognize unhealthy relationships. It is not okay for people to pressurize you, force you, threaten you, or trick you into doing things that you don't want to do, even if it's someone you consider a close friend. It's not okay for people to mock you, shame you, or criticize you for your choices. You can ask them to stop this behavior, or you can just choose to avoid spending time with them. And if neither is possible or working out for you, we encourage you to talk to your teachers about this. Some other ways you can deal with it are spending time with people who respect your decisions and choices. Surround yourself with people who care about you and who will not pressure you into doing things you don't want to. Practice saying no. I'm sure a lot of us have the problem of not being able to say no, even though we really, really want to. It can be tough to say no to someone you consider a friend because maybe you don't want to hurt their feelings. Maybe you don't want to come off as rude. But what's important to know is that people will understand and respect your decisions most of the times. And no is a perfectly reasonable answer, and it's a complete sentence. You don't have to explain yourself to anyone. You don't owe anyone an explanation. Maybe you might have trouble saying no because you try to make people like you. And like I said earlier, you might not want to come off as being rude, or maybe you might just be nervous about saying no. When it comes to situations like this, it's important to remember that it's not possible to make everyone like you, and you shouldn't have to. People will like you for yourself, and you shouldn't have to change your values and choices for them to like you. Practicing ways of saying no, maybe in the mirror, or practicing different ways rather than just an outright no, like maybe some other time, or I'm not up for it. Learning to practice how to say no in these informal ways can also help you muster courage in the actual situation. And lastly, please reach out to a mentor, a teacher, parent, guardian, counselor, any trusted adult for advice and support. They can be your support system and guide you through the right path. Now, we've learned about how to deal with peer pressure for yourself. But what do you do when you see your friend falling in to temptations or giving in to peer pressure? How do you help them? Well, here's a few ways you can help them too. The first thing you can do is stand up for them. When you see someone being pressurized, stand up for them. And if you don't feel comfortable directly confronting the situation, like, hey, stop doing this, maybe you could try distracting them or inviting the person being pressurized to do something else. So say it's your friend who's being pressurized by someone, you could go and say, hey, could I talk to you for a second? Or hey, XYZ is looking for you. Or hey, could you come with me to XYZ place? That works as a great distraction strategy, and it also helps you manage the situation without being too confrontational about it. The next thing you could do is ask them to reach out to a parent, a teacher, a counselor, or any other trusted adult for support and help. And lastly, be there for them. This is the most important point of all. Create a safe, supportive, and comfortable environment for them so that they know that they have you to lean back on and they can count on you to have their back. They should know that you're there for them and they do not need to go and indulge in these behaviors in order to fit in because they have friends like you. And lastly, provide them with helplines, which we will be providing to you at the end of this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Kashvi, for your persuasive information. We must really give that a thought. Next, we have Tisya Singh on prioritizing mental wellness.
Thank you, Priyoshi. So when we think about mental wellness, we think about mentally how healthy you are. And normally when you're not feeling okay, when you're in a bad mental state, most of these problems can be associated towards stress and anxiety. Well, let's think of an example. Do you remember a time when you were stressed out for absolutely the smallest reason? How about when you were stuck on a math problem that you just couldn't get? You tried to reach out to your friends, but it was no help. You spent hours on this, and it's just frustrating. You throw in your books, crying, giving up. It's just one silly problem, but you stressed yourself out. Now, this shows that stress is extremely common among teenagers and can have serious long-term impacts on your health too. But the question that may arise now is how exactly is stress, mental wellness, and cancer related? Well, stress and cancer are not directly related per se, but it can affect you in many indirect ways. For example, stress can cause you to take up very unhealthy habits such as drinking, smoking, drugs, etc. And due to this, our lifestyle becomes incredibly unhealthy and causes a drop in our immunity system. It doesn't function as well. And because of this lifestyle, we also have high chances of becoming obese. And these all are things that can all lead towards cancer. Because of this high really raise in toxicity in your lives, it increases the risks of cancer by a lot. And let's now look at how stress can affect our physical body at the same time. Chronic stress or long-term stress makes it difficult for the body to return to a normal level of hormone activity, which can contribute to problems in systems such as the cardiovascular system, respiratory system, reproductive system, and your immune system. How these can be noticed is when your heart rate increases, blood pressure increases, constant shortness of breath, or rapid breathing. These all can take a heavy toll on your body. And we all are very well aware that these systems are very, very essential. And if these weaken, then our entire body weakens and our immunity is less, which again, as I mentioned before, increases the risks of cancer. But enough talk about what could happen. Let's talk about how we can prevent this from happening. One of the best ways is to be mentally well and practice self-care. Practicing self-care greatly reduces the effects of stress and anxiety, which also in turn lessens the chance of cancer. There's one misconception about physical health and mental health though, which is they're very different and mental health does not affect your physical health, vice versa. That's actually wrong. Mental health and physical health are very much interconnected. And we need to take care of both of them equally for us to be mentally well and just for our regular well-being. But how can we practice self-care? Now, self-care can mean different things for each person. Each person can have a different definition of what calms them or what makes them feel better. But these things that I will be mentioning now are like the staple. They have to be a part of your self-care practice for you to actually achieve mental wellness. First thing would be to maintain a nutritional diet. You need to eat properly. You have to reduce your consumption of saturated fats and red meat and increase your consumption of fruits, veggies, and whole grains. Secondly, you have to exercise regularly. Physical activity has been linked to a risk of colon, breast, and reproductive cancers. This makes your physical health and your exercise routines very, very much important. Sleep and rest. You absolutely need to make sleep a priority and not just any sleep, like quality sleep, that is 7 to 8 hours of good sleep during the night. Admittedly, the evidence linking cancer to sleep is not strong, but poor and insufficient sleep is associated with weight gain and obesity, which is a cancer risk factor. As we already talked about tobacco, we know how dangerous it is and how it can definitely increase risks of cancer. But what I like to mention is not exposure to tobacco or smoking. Even secondhand exposure is as dangerous as you smoking yourself. That is people around you who smoke. So if you have any people around you who smoke or your family members, you can always show them videos or statistics about how exactly dangerous it is and try and convince them to stop using tobacco or stop smoking. You need to maintain a healthy weight. Now, what this means is that obesity, as I already mentioned, increases the risk of many forms of cancer. If you need to slim down, take in a fewer calories, burn more calories with like exercise, which can be done from the previous points of maintaining nutritional diet and also eating healthy. And also exercising regularly and maintaining a very fit body in health. But this also doesn't mean that you can just cut down on everything, because the opposite of obesity can also suppress your immune system. That's why there has to be a balance between both, and there's a range of healthy body weight which you have to maintain. Protect yourself from ultraviolet radiation in sunlight. Fun fact, more than 90% of cancers, skin cancers, are caused due to sun exposure. Too much UV radiation from the sun or sunbelts can damage the DNA in our skin cells, which can lead to skin cancer. Now, we already have talked a lot about tobacco, so I also want to get into more about alcohol, as it is also one of the leading causes of cancer. People use alcohol as a mechanism, like a coping mechanism for their stress. They think that it's gonna help them. And it's true to an extent, because drinking can reduce your fears and it can take your mind off your troubles. In fact, alcohol's effects can be similar to those of anti-anxiety medicines. But drinking excessive amounts of alcohol can also have noticeable physical and mental consequences. At a point, you may develop a resistance to the nullifying effects of alcohol, which leads to overconsumption. Overconsumption of alcohol can lead to blackouts, loss of memory, and even brain damage. These issues actually create more anxiety as you cope with these symptoms. So I'll let you decide for yourself. Drinking alcohol is a good coping mechanism or not? I will go with the latter. But what is a coping mechanism which you can use, which is truly effective and is completely healthy? The answer to that would be meditation. Numerous studies have shown that meditation is an effective stress management tool. When consistently practiced, meditators' capacity to manage stress greatly increases. In fact, meditation has been scientifically proven to reduce stress just after 8 weeks of regular practice. We have also provided resources that you can use for meditation for stress. So please make sure to check that out. But there are also times when nothing seems to help. It just gets too overwhelming and you're burnt out and absolutely nothing helps. What should you do in that situation? Well, in this situation, it's very important to realize that you are not alone. You can seek help via various mediums. You can call helplines, reach out to trusted adults or peers, or even consult a therapist or a counselor. And also, it's like many people frame therapists in a very bad light, but you should know that it's completely okay to consult one. It's completely normal. You can even meet your school counselor or just anyone you're close with who you can rely on, just to talk about how you're feeling and just like let out all the emotions that you've built up, because it is very important to do so. We have also provided a list of global helpline numbers which you can use for the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Tisya, for your encouraging words. To reach out to us and join our initiative, Here are our social media links. Thank you all for staying with us till the end of the workshop. We really hope that you guys have gained at least some insight on combating cancer. I would like to remind you again about the crowdfunding link, which will be present in the chat box. Guys, every bit helps. And guys, also please do not forget to join our Instagram live today at 6 p.m. where we talk to a cancer patient about their journey. Thank you all for joining. Have a good day or Palyaji. But please do not forget to donate ASAP.
We'd like to talk about some of our teams at TCP if you would be interested in joining. Here are what we do at TCP. We have fundraising roles, event organizing roles, social media creator roles, as well as finance and healthcare roles. We are also answering questions. So if you guys have any questions, you can message any of the co-hosts and we will be addressing them right now. I actually had a question come in earlier saying, if we have consumed an extremely high-fat diet for a few years, is it still likely to result into cancer in the future? So this is a very general question, and you can't really give a guarantee of whether it will turn into cancer, but it does increase the risk of cancer having an extremely high-fat diet over a long term, as it mutates the cells. I'm not going to get too much into biology, but I will say that if you can change your diet right now, then it will make a huge improvement. And moderation is very important in that part. It's important to have a healthy balance. So don't cut out fat completely, but also don't rely entirely on fat as your diet. If you have any other questions, you can leave it in the chat box. You can also leave your feedback, any comments, anything you have for us. I'd like to reiterate to please donate. We're trying to really help poor cancer patients in very poverty-stricken areas. So yeah, please donate.
Yes, do guys.
We would really appreciate it.
Once again.
Yeah. Also, we would like to hear stories of peer pressure if anyone would like to share, because I'm sure as high schoolers, we've all had experiences with peer pressure, be it intentional or unintentional, from friends or from bullies. So this is a safe space, and I want to say if anyone wants to share their stories, you can go ahead. And I'd like to add that our school has an amazing group of teachers and counselors, as well as doctors, some of which have joined us here today. Thank you so much, Vinita ma'am and Dr. Sudha for joining us here. So our school has a lot of resources in place. If you would like to reach out, they're always available to help you.
If you would like to share any of your stories of peer pressure, please do unmute and we will allow you to unmute. Or if you would like to just type the story out to us and mention that you want us to read it out anonymously, we will do that as well.
All right, guys, thank you so much for joining our session. I hope you found that informative, and I hope you will continue to support us in the future. Thank you for joining. You may leave now. You will be getting your certificates of participation via email in a day or two.
Thank you very much for joining and making our webinar so successful. We hope you really enjoyed our webinar today.
TCP officers and crew members. Yeah, Webhub, did you have a question?
Can we let Webhub unmute?
Yes, please. Yeah, Webhub, did you have a question? If you're unable to unmute, you could send it on the chat as well. All
If you,
right.
if you raised your hand by mistake, also you
That's
can.
okay too. Yeah, that's okay too. All right. Thank you everyone for joining. I would like TCP crew members and presenters to stay back. Teachers and doctor, you can stay back too as well if you would like to say anything to us or would like to discuss anything.